Hello, game developers. Chris DeLeon here of GameDev. Let's have a short chat about the fact that constraints are not valid excuses. They're an opportunity to do something creative and clever. Alright, so what I mean by constraints, just to begin, so we're all on the same page, right, is your limitations. And this could be in the amount of hours that you have that you can put into your game development. This could be in the amount of money that you do or don't have to put into your game development. This could be in any element, right? It could be what background you do or don't have. It could be what teammates you do or don't have access to, etc. Constraints are not saying you can't do good things. They're saying you have to be more, it's going to be trickier to figure out what good things can you do within your constraints. All right. So an example I love for this, right? And granted, I mean, this is a company that had plenty of money, so money was not their limitation. But if you look at early CG films, like from Pixar, right? Toy Story, Cars, Finding Nemo, and so on. At the time, computer hardware was terrible for 3D graphics. The technology was just not there to do a lot of things we now take for granted. And part of why I think people don't, I think somebody's missed this connection, right? We all know it's children's stuff and it's done in kind of a cartoony fashion. Those decisions, you can tell if you look historically, like in those time periods in the 90s or even early 2000s, right? The kind of things that computer graphics could show exceptionally well were stuff like plastic, were stuff like shiny metal and glass, things like fish with scales that are shimmery and wet looking, right? I mean, if you look back at the old critiques of what the problems were with 3D graphics around even like human skin, right? Which increasingly, computer graphics are getting better about human skin. We still can't even like show a face up close without freaking you out if it's computer generated, right? Instead of Pixar saying, well, we can't do a good computer generated film because the hardware and capabilities and the software algorithms just aren't there yet to do a good, compelling movie on a computer, they looked at, okay, well, you know what? Right now, we're at a point where we can do plastic really well, right? We have nailed that problem by this time in history. We've got good techniques for rendering of metal, for rubber, for all these other kind of materials, for dust, right? These are things that they then found ways to make movies partly around. Now, I'm not saying that they started necessarily from there, but they looked at what's possible for us and how do we succeed and excel within that space. And the same thing's true if you look at indie games, right? Whether it's simple platformers like VVVVVVV, whether it's 3D stuff that's changed or created entire genres like Minecraft, those are games where they didn't look at what they had and say, I can't produce AAA polish, I don't have the means, the time, the money, the team size, etc. to do that, therefore it's not worth trying. What they said was, okay, well, what's possible for me to do that I can really do well? And so that's what they shot for, and that's what they nailed, right? And that doesn't mean that everyone who works from the constraints is going to see that level of success. What it means is that just because you have constraints isn't to say that you can't do or achieve good things that win awards, get lots of traffic and players, get large recognitions in some cases, earn some money, right? It's all about, okay, what can you do within your constraints? And sometimes that leads you down a really interesting path that someone else wouldn't have thought of because they didn't have that constraint to partly inform their design, or rather they ignored it and just butted their head against trying to make a crummier version of a game that they didn't have the budget to do. Right, so anyway, I want to keep this short, so that's it for now. Basically, when you see constraints, don't look at it as a limitation that therefore you can't succeed. You can't make a good game. You can't do something interesting and compelling to entertain people. Look at it as, okay, well, what are my other options? Because somewhere within the realm of what's possible to you, with whatever amount of time, money, energy, peers, development training, background, whatever it is you have and don't have, there are still possibilities in that space that'll be much more compelling than either giving up entirely, obviously, or butting up the low ceiling of, I just don't have the $500 million budget it's going to take to make a game like Grand Theft Auto 5 or, you name the open sandbox. So anyway, that's it for now. Chris DeLeon for GameDev. Thanks for tuning in. Keep making games. Y'all rock.